Welcome to the Vibrant Life Show. This show is all about exploring the purposes God has placed in our lives and the passions He's placed in our hearts to reach the community He has placed us in for such a time as this. Whether we're hearing stories of those living out their purposes, helping you discover your gifts, diving into the Word, leaning into cultural moments, or asking hard questions, the goal of this show is to remind us that the life we're created to live is an adventurous one, an authentic one, a meaningful one. We are invited to live the vibrant life. And this show is brought to you by Second Mile Realty. The housing market is crazy in Phoenix, and I just want to tell you that there is an agent who is waiting to help you. Her name is Gentry, and she has a team of agents over at Second Mile Realty that are trustworthy and ready to help you find your home. Contact Gentry at 480-540-9061, or you can call me. That's the number I was about to give you, so that was fun. Or reach out to her at jansellsaz@gmail.com. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the mess that is Allie Gentry. Welcome back to the Vibrant Life Show. I am so glad you are with us today, and I can't wait for you to get to know my friend. Miley Waterman is in the house. Hi, girl.
Hi.
How are you
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
great. Thank you.
I know. This is so exciting. You just recently moved to Arizona, and when I saw that, I'm like, Miley, please come be on the show. Obviously, I'm open to having people from anywhere, but I love getting to be in the studio. And so when I saw that, and I know the powerhouse that you are, not only in your own life, but in the kingdom, and how you've already poured into me from the moment I met you, I was like, I have to have Miley on. People need to hear her voice and her passion and the call that God's placed on her life and the move that you're a part of, making such a difference in our world. So thank you for being with us. I'm excited.
Thank you, Allie. I'm so excited and honored to be here.
Well, I would love for people to get to know you, who you are, anything you want to share with us, and what you do.
Okay, I am a wife and a mom. I've been married for 18 years. My husband likes to say 18 long years, but he's just kidding when he says that. And we have a 13-year-old son. He's our only kid, and we have 2 dogs. And we live now here in Phoenix. And I've had a long career in event production. I dabbled in ministry at my local church back in Long Beach for about 7 years, and that's where the Brave movement was birthed, and now Brave Global is a full-on nonprofit of which I am the CEO.
Wow. Okay, so you moved from like running event company and multiple events for Walt Disney, the Grammys, the Emmy. Like, can you please just list that off really fast for me?
Yeah, that is so. I had a long career with just corporate production, event marketing, big brands, Disney, Super Bowl, Oscars. I get to do that every year. So yeah, I still do production on the side, but Brave Global is my full-time gig right now.
And you started your own production company with your husband, Brian, correct?
Yep, back in 2013, we started our own production company.
And so how did you go from production company to being at the church to moving into Brave Global, which we'll definitely dive into what that is. But how is that move from production to nonprofit ministry, global ministry? Because that doesn't seem like a natural progression.
It's not totally a natural progression. And that's why my husband is a full-time executive producer. And so he runs all of the business out of our company that still exists. I do a little bit on the side now. Before it was full-time. And at that point in time, I was doing a lot of shows for, corporate, like I said, and big brands. And I was looking for something just more purposeful. And so while we kept the business going and it's still alive, I felt a strong pull back in, I guess like 8 years ago to do something more purposeful. And so that is when I went into ministry at my local church as the director of special events and services. And I did that for 7 years. So that was, I think, just God telling me like, hey, you want to do something more purposeful, start on a local level. And without me making that move and serving in my local church, I never would have been a part of the Brave movement. And that's where it was birthed as a grassroots effort. So that's kind of how it all happened.
The fact that you used stuff that you came out of business, production, and then you were able to use the things and the knowledge you had within that space within the local church. I think that's critical for people to realize that what you do in the business world, or a lot of times as careers, I am like vocational ministry, I'm full time, but I know that there's so many people who are, that's not the story for most people who are in the church. So for you to be able to use your knowledge and then to go serve the church with that knowledge, and then it became a position for you at the church, which I think is great that there's a position for events at a church.
Right.
And then how does God use those steps of you saying, okay, I'll go do this. And then, okay, how was that progression into what is now Brave Global, from your church at Revive into Brave Global? And what is Brave Global for those who do not know that yet?
Yeah, sure. So Brave Global is a nonprofit that seeks to empower vulnerable youth and women in order to fight exploitation and trafficking. So at my local church back in Long Beach, when I was in ministry there, we came to know about the statistics around human trafficking in the local LA County area, which was basically out of all of the girls that were being rescued from human trafficking, 70 to 80% of them were from the foster care system. So this woman who worked for the city, she came to my pastors and myself on staff and just said, hey, the church needs to respond to this. Like, we need to be on the short list of first responders alongside police and foster care and probation. Like, we need to be reaching these girls just like they are. And so we linked arms with all of those entities and we said, hey, I know we're a church. We're not going to do anything weird. Let us help you reach these girls, and with a message of empowerment, identity and purpose. And so that's where it was birthed at the local church. We started doing these annual empowerment events for these young girls. The first time we did it, we had 200 girls that were like 100% from foster care and probation. We invited them into the church. We empowered them, did makeovers, did education, all kinds of stuff. It was like a day-long conference that you and I might go to as women, but they would have never gotten to experience. So out of that birthed Brave Global. We started getting requests from other communities and churches, even mega churches like Mariners down in Orange County. They were like, hey, what are you guys doing? We want to do that too. So we decided to incorporate as a legit nonprofit. We built a board, which now consists of Noemi Chavez, who was our lead pastor at the time, and Danielle Strickland. And we have a bunch of people on our team, and we coach communities all over the globe to replicate what we built in Long Beach 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Global.
Global. We really are global.
What areas are you outside of the United States, or outside of, how many are in the United States, maybe? And then also, where are you globally? We
have about 15 to 20 Brave communities within the United States, and those are active on all different levels, especially because of COVID. So some of them have gotten back to doing the in-person events. Some of them are doing Brave Circles, which are small groups with our curriculum that we have published. And then in Canada, we have a huge momentum right now. We have several provinces doing Brave communities. We have South Africa starting up, and Australia is on deck.
Wow.
We have the Democratic Republic of the Congo has done 2 Brave events.
Wow.
So it's all over the place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And it's so needed. And I think that's the beauty of partnership, is that because you can know that it's happening in your backyard. Like, when you start knowing those things, then you guys are doing it. So if we can partner with people who are doing it and doing it well, I think we actually can make a bigger impact, or maybe a big impact that way. When we feel like maybe we can't, when we partner with people just as much as Brave Global is doing. And I've had the honor to meet all 3 of the leaders, Danielle and Noemi, and of course you, through Women's Speakers Collective, which is a whole different amazing organization.
Yes, you have to do a show about them. So,
once I can get them in here, we're working on doing it, but I just love being in studio with people. So, but yeah, I have to get them in here because they've brought together so many people who are doing amazing work in the kingdom. But when we're talking about passions and living this vibrant life, it feels as if like you were living it in the production world. You were living that full, like, I'm, putting on shows for the Emmys and the Grammys. And I think I saw Toyota, Honda, girl, you were doing the thing. So it's not like you had to move into vocational ministry to live a vibrant or to live an abundant life. And then all of a sudden you're going out into the communities. But I really believe that God has created us uniquely and called us purposefully to go out to the community to make an impact. And it sounds like that's you're using the gifts you have to go out into the community and make that impact. But was that a passion? Like, was the purpose of Brave like a passion for you starting out, or was that developed?
It was developed, and I believe it was a calling that I didn't know that I was going to get. It was, I grew up in church. I am very used to serving, every Sunday of my life in some capacity at my local church, no matter where that is. Very familiar with what that looks like, but I never thought that I would run a nonprofit or do this for my full-time job. And so when this came about, when we had the opportunity to take it from a grassroots effort to a global nonprofit, Danielle and Noemi and the rest of the team said to me, I remember clearly, they said, they looked across the table and they said, well, obviously you should be the CEO. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. And I said that for about 2 weeks. And I even told God like 3 times, like, I am not the girl for this job. I never wanted to do nonprofit. And very clearly, I heard 3 times, you are the girl for the job. And it was kind of like a, if not you, then who? And he was starting to slowly show me that all of my skills that I had been honing in the event production world and the management world and the ministry world, even just most recently before that, those were all going to translate into me being able to effectively run this organization. And they have.
Right. If not you, then who?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And hearing those words, even as you're saying them back to me right now across the table,
Ouch.
but to all of us out there, I'm like, because I would say, personally, I've experienced that as well, where you feel like, no. Like people are like, Allie, I've been told, even with Arise, the monthly event that we run here in Phoenix and beyond that now, but where it's God. I felt it in my heart 4 years before it ever came to be. And then for someone to come and tell me, hey, I felt like the Holy Spirit told me or showed me or however it was that you're supposed to start this event. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Although deep down I was like, this kind of makes sense.
Right.
But like, no, like, how am I supposed to do this? I've never done this before. Who is going to come around me? So for that to be the thing that got you to say yes is a powerful statement. If not you, then who?
Right.
Do you feel like it's now turned into a passion of yours?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think because, along the way, you start becoming more educated and aware of the problems that are not just like people think exploitation and trafficking happens in like third world countries or developing countries or somewhere far off. That's not true. It's just simply not true. Like, it's happening in our backyard, in the city that we're sitting in right now, in the city that you're sitting in, listener. It's happening there too. So, and exploitation takes on many forms, not just trafficking. So I mean, the fight against that is something that anybody anywhere can get involved in. And so once I started understanding the magnitude, it was like, okay, it is me. It's all of us.
Mm-hmm. Does the magnitude intimidate you?
It does. I try to remember that alone, one of us can't do everything, but we can all do something. And that relieves a lot of pressure because I wake up every day and like probably once a month I tell God I want to quit because it's just too hard, like, to be honest, But every day I just wake up and I say, okay, well, I just have to do what I can do. And if everybody did that, we'd be so much further along, I think. I think that there is this idea that it's just too hard. The mountain's too big. It's too big of a problem. So I'm not even going to get involved. Right. But there's something that everybody can do.
Right. But what do you think is hindering people from getting involved in such, like, I know that we took a little bit so people could understand the process of getting to Brave and who you are, because I really believe that you live this life of, like I just told you last night, like, you exude light, just so you know, like this vibrant life, like this is who you are. And I want people to know that, but I also want to have a conversation that's very hard to have because when you talk about Brave, that's trafficking, that's young girls and there's young boys. Trafficking is happening all over the place, yet a lot of times, whether by choice of ignorance or by just not knowing and genuinely, I just feel like this is a deep and hard conversation to have, to jump into, but it's one we have to have. So what do you feel like is hindering people from even like the awareness of what's going on around us?
I think that it's just people don't know what they don't know. So I think for some people there is just a lack of awareness, like they haven't been introduced to the idea that this is even out there, that these atrocities are happening. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so I get really fired up about injustices. So it's really hard for me to say, oh, people haven't heard about it. I feel like by now most people have heard about this issue.
Right.
But it's easy. It's easier to be unaware. It's just easier to just say, I don't know anything about that. And then close the conversation and just say, and just kind of plug your ears. That's an easier way to live for sure. But once you know, you can't not know.
Right.
So then I don't know. I mean, that's what gets me out of bed every morning. It's like, I know now what I know, and okay, there's something to do.
Right. And a lot of times we think that ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
But in this case, ignorance is actually the pain of someone else.
Right.
And a lot of times that bliss that we feel, our own comfort, is someone else's extreme discomfort or pain or heart, like brokenness that we actually could do something about. Yet we're just choosing comfort.
Right.
And I keep coming back to comfort over calling. We live in a society that chooses that over and over and over again. But as believers, that's not our call. Our call is not to comfort. Our call is to the brokenhearted and to serve those. And that's who you are serving. And so how do we help people even push past the discomfort of having these conversations? Because I actually feel like in the last year, I mean, COVID season is what I just call it because it's over a year at this point.
Right.
Do you feel like a lot of things are being revealed and brought to light? Do you feel like this has stirred people's heart to serve? Or how have you seen this last season, particularly into, I know it's foster care that you're reaching out to, but also in trafficking? Has there been a direct, I don't know, I just feel like there's some type of revealing happening where people can't not see things anymore.
No, you can't not see. I feel like you can't claim unawareness anymore. This last year, I believe, has taken the blinders off of every single one of us in some way, shape, or form. Whatever issue it is that you're, fired up about, the blinders are off and the gloves have come off. People are much more outspoken. People are ready to fight for whatever they believe in, fight for their cause, their issue, and really try to make a difference. People are seeing injustices of all levels everywhere. So, I think that it's just it's time to stop claiming unawareness.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a story of one of the girls that you guys have served, or one that sticks out to you? Because obviously you've been doing this for quite a few years now. I'm sure, and I've read testimonials, I've heard them. I mean, you guys have so many chapters. You have resources for people all on their website that you can definitely share later for Brave Global, resources, videos, podcasts, Brave Girls podcast. I mean, you guys have all of these resources for people, but a lot of times it's the stories that change people's hearts. And is there a story that stands out to you of how this has impacted someone's life?
Yeah, there's so many. I think the one that I tell most often is at our very first Brave Youth Empowerment event at the local church. The girls were getting back on their buses to go back to their group homes and schools, what have you. And there was this teenage girl. She must have been 15 or 16. And I, so unaware, and I feel so stupid now when I look back. I said to her, "It was so great to have you. We'll hope to see you next year." And she looked at me and said, "Lady, I don't even know where I'm going to be next month."
Wow.
And even today, when I think about that, it's like a dagger in my heart because, I mean, truly, when these foster kids get to a certain age, I mean, and this is just the truth. Everybody wants to adopt the baby that they can mold and shape and form and influence and nurture. When you get a foster kid who has had trouble that has escalated into behavioral issues, and maybe they've run away and they have all kinds of possible juvenile justice involvement. I mean, these 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that are aging out, nobody wants to make them part of their forever family. And these girls are getting moved around every 30 days sometimes with a trash bag full of their stuff. That's all they have to their name. Wow. So I'll never forget that girl or her face or what she said to me, because it's like, okay, that's the girl that we're fighting for. That's the girl that is she's the most vulnerable to being exploited, to being trafficked. We have to fight for her. We have to get in front of her with the message of worth and value and purpose. We have to.
Right. And that's so powerful, because what you're doing is you're going to, before they're being trafficked, you're going to the foster care system to make sure that they know that they're loved, that they have value. And I actually was listening and read that you guys have your 3 pillars. What's the first one?
Hope and empowerment.
Yeah. And so, but I remember you sharing that they're seen, valued, and they matter. And they matter.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's so important, because that comes back to the identity issue, is that they think that their identity is in foster care, or that they're unwanted.
Right.
They don't have value, that they're not seen. And I just feel, how do you feel like that ties into their identity?
Well, I mean, after years and years of them being moved around because they're quote unquote not wanted and they're just displaced. I mean, after years and years and years of that happening, can you imagine the damage that does to your psyche? Or the girl who believes that she's only worth the $20 that some John paid for her the night before. Like, those are the girls. Like, after so many times and so many years of that, I mean, you can imagine what that does to their psyche. So the message that we come in with, we see you, you matter, you're loved, we're with you, you belong. Those are the pillars. And we just try as hard as we can to get in front of them and their caregivers with the message, and just say, we got to keep telling them this over and over.
Right, right. So do you guys do work with the caregivers too?
We do. We try to resource our caregivers as much as possible. So when we train a brave community, we give them the tools to reach their youth, but also to empower the social workers, the probation officers, the foster parents, anybody who's working and directly caring for the kids.
Wow. Yeah, I'm trust me, you guys have resources on resources.
We do.
and it's beautiful. Like, it's such a gift, because you guys are doing this well and going to the foster care system and making sure that those girls feel seen and loved, and that they know that they are created on purpose and for purpose, really. And so that's hard work. And I think that oftentimes is it's not easy work. It's hard and holy work, is like what I like to call it. And that's what you guys are doing. And so what would be practical tools or handles that you would encourage us, and even myself, or someone listening who would love to get involved or know more? Like, what are some ways that they can get involved, or options?
Yeah, I would just say, just start digging into your local human trafficking task force. I would even say visit your local child and family services branch and just say, how can I even just like bring donuts to one of your, meetings, hook up with the police department, ask how you can serve them. I mean, like I said before, this is a problem that is, to somebody who's not educated, might not exist in their very safe or maybe affluent neighborhood. That's not true. So if you dig into your local task forces, you're going to see quickly how you can serve. And then, of course, I mean, look up our channels, Brave Global Inc. on Instagram and Facebook. We have so many different partners listed there: Saving Innocence, Exodus Cry, 821. I mean, there's organizations out there that they have something. They have a way that anybody can serve. Like, if you dig enough, you can find your place.
Right. And can people volunteer at events that are near?
Yeah,
like, or do you have to go through a whole? Do you need to go through a system, and then how do we find events that maybe we could volunteer at?
Yeah. So if there's a local Brave event, it'll be listed on our website, and you could definitely contact that event organizer. We resource them to be able to produce their own event. So they put all their volunteers through the process of being able to volunteer.
Yeah. Well, that is honestly amazing. And I know that you are pushing through and having to do work that, like I said earlier, it's hard to have these conversations right out the gate, but it's conversations that are needed to be had. So what is like a tidbit or some type of encouragement of how to have this conversation with someone that you're maybe wanting to bring this chapter into your local church or do something like maybe how do they have that conversation?
I think just do your research and have your local need identified before you bring it to the table. Like, I made the mistake one time before at a dinner party bringing up this whole subject of anti-trafficking, and it was not well received. So know your audience, know your environment. Don't bring it up at the wrong time. Because a lot of people don't want to hear it, and They don't want to be involved. Find out what the stats are in your area, get to the right people, and tell them that you want to help.
Right. And I just want to honor you and thank you all for just the hard work that you're doing and the good work you're doing in our communities, because so many of us, I believe, like God has placed certain calls and passions on our lives to reach a certain place. I know that I have done a few things along the way where I'm like, that's probably not, I can serve there, but that's probably not my calling.
Right.
And so I just thank you for saying yes, for stepping out and doing the thing. And I just encourage everyone to be aware and to support, even if that's not the call on your life, but you never know until sometimes you step out and get involved. That might be the very thing that God stirs to use to make an impact on their community. So how can people get in contact with you?
Yep. Our web address is braveglobal.org. We're on Instagram and Facebook, Brave Global Inc., and you can find all of the information there.
Miley, you are wonderful. I am so grateful for this conversation and all that you're doing. Everyone, if you're listening, we will link to all of these things in the podcast show notes. If you go to our podcast or YouTube, we would love for you to hang out with us over there as well. And just thank you, Miley, for your wonderful life and example that you give us. And
Thanks,
remember
Allie.
that each day is to live the vibrant life. Thank you for joining me on the Vibrant Life Show. I would love to connect with you and get to know you. My favorite place to hang out is over on Instagram at allie.gentry or over on Facebook. You can also go to my website, alliegentry.com. That's ALIGENTRY.com. Sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date and get links to the show on all platforms after we air, the show's YouTube channel, and really just all the things. I am so honored to get to hang out with you today. My heart is that you remember that each day is an invitation to live the vibrant life.